Greetings and welcome to Legacies of Wavryn, Lore of the Endelment. This will be chapter 34 of this reading. Standing on the rooftop of a 3-story building, Bunny and I could overhear both Vincent and his sister talking amongst themselves. At the same time, we could get a clear view of the rivalry, but I didn't care. I just wanted to fight, which Vincent wouldn't let me do, the jerk. Yet respect was something that had to be kept up high within our race. Otherwise, we'd be very much like humans, that being very bad, in my opinion. Carefully watching his sister, Vincent asked, "Out of all the powers to achieve, Janine, why choose darkness?" Janine just stared at her brother with a big grin of insanity as she replied, "Because it feels good to have the need to slaughter the innocent." She raised her right hand up at her chest, with her claws positioned as if holding something, and continued, "To crave the taste of flesh and blood of those that have no will or strength to fight back." She then clenched her right hand into a tight fist and added, "To want more and more of that which breeds fear into the hearts and souls of my pitiful enemies." Even as my half-sister, I expected more from you, Janine. I had hoped that you would have followed in our father's footsteps, as I have, and carried out the task to find absolute power. A power that would never require sacrifice of either our lives or the lives of others. "That's all bullshit, brother." Janine then raised her right hand to point at her brother and continued, "And you damn well know it." With that, she lowered her hand and voice as she said, "The search for such power is, and always shall be, impossible. And it's only a matter of time till the gods forsake us completely, as they have to the human race." "How so?" Janine turned her body slightly back from her right, while she moved her right hand behind her back a bit and replied, "If there was such a thing as absolute power, brother, then none of us would exist. We'd all be obliterated off the face of the universe if that kind of power could ever be true. We would have found it by now if it were so, and done everything we could to have kept it to ourselves. Even if it meant destroying ourselves, just to keep others from ever finding out about it." Noticing what his sister was doing, Vincent slowly grew out 2 light gold piercers, one over each of his wrists, while he said, "Don't do this, Janine. Please." Ignoring her brother's plea, the half-blood continued with what she was doing, started to gather energy into her right hand for a blast as she continued, "Along with that, what makes you think the gods will allow us to continue living the way we do with just the basic powers we have now? At the same time, why don't humans have the ability to concentrate energy like we do? As my sister, I wish not to bring harm upon you, but you must stand down now." I sensed a great amount of power coming from Janine as she continued to gather her dark energy into her right hand, while she said, "It's because humans are weak and ignorant of themselves. That's why the gods disowned them. That's why they are unworthy. They came to understand that the human race needed not this so-called power and kept them from it, forcing the human race to forever live a life that has been cast down into the depths of abyss by their very own creators." Vincent finally grew angry at his sister as he raised his voice and said, "Janine, stop this right now." Having gathered enough dark energy, Janine continued to ignore her brother as she said, "Our race is a liking of the humans, given the chance of power we now have to be peaceful. However, we became ignorant and felt to cast aside the gods and rule on our own. Now, not only will the gods strip us of our heritage, they will send forth a being who we can never stand against. The Endelment. Even if we were to gain our powers back, he will destroy us. I will kill you if necessary, Janine." "Ha!" Janine barked as she quickly threw her head back for a second. As she moved herself to face her brother again, the half-blood said, You kill me? How shallow, dear elder brother. Your empty threats mean nothing to me. With the powers of darkness in my grasp, you will never have what it takes to kill me. Vincent took a step back with his right foot to ready himself as he calmly said, Very well then, Janine, but I must warn you. If what you say is true, and I die today by your hands, you will not only never be able to gain power to overthrow this Endelment, but you will forever live a life of regret. Forever suffering as you wander aimlessly through the midst of life, begging to be set free. Begging for death, though death will never come. Janine's expression went into a hatred towards her brother as she said, I'm done wasting my breath on you, Vincent. She then threw her right hand out and shot the immensely concentrated blast at my friend as she shouted, Die! The attack came out to be a giant sphere of dark energy, 8 feet big all around. However, Vincent swung his right arm blade down with the blast as it came near and split it apart with one sway, shattering the attack into nothing. He then quickly turned to swing upward with his left arm blade and released a key slash. Before the attack hit, Janine vanished from her standing point and reappeared back in the same spot, having dodged the blast. She sprung out 2 piercers of her own, one over each wrist, both as pitch black as the heart that she had enslaved to darkness. The half-blood jolted towards her Kexan brother and started clashing against him with great speed. They moved within the general area as they fought furiously, exchanging blows as they jumped, dashed, shimmied, etc. While doing so, they continued to speak amongst each other. Vincent still wished to stop his sister from doing any more harm to herself, but I doubt at her stage she would listen at all. I knew from the way Janine acted and how she wanted nothing more than to kill those that were weak to her. She wasn't going to hold back. I saw that just about everyone I once knew in my blood family, with the excuse of Grandpa. So, of course, there was no way Vincent was going to change her. As the battle between them waged on, Vincent said, I wish nothing more than to help you, Janine. Please, allow me to do so. Fuck you, the half-blood angrily barked. I don't need your help or anyone else's. You're all nothing to me. Just as we all were when the ancients decided to disappear on us. And so, with my final stand as the Kexan I am, I will crush you and everyone else into nothing but dust. My friend used a clash between them to push himself away to try and stop his sister, but she just simply swung and shot out 2 key slashes from her blades towards him. Vincent dodged each attack, then jolted towards his sister to continue fighting as he said, Janine, please. If what you say is true, then you and I are the only ones left that must carry out our legacy. We need to continue to look for that eternal and absolute power. We must find the Endelment. Once we do, we can finally end Dominic's reign of terror. Janine laughed out loud, then kicked her brother in the stomach to stun him for a moment. Shortly after that, she lashed out one of her tails to stab through Vincent's stomach and swing him around to toss him into the pavement from about 100 feet, as she said, You speak of nonsense, brother. Once Vincent hit the pavement, Janine reverted her left piercer and aimed the palm of her hand at him as she charged for a powerful energy blast. In that moment, Vincent stood up and faced his sister just as she positioned to fire the attack. Before it could hit, our friend dodged the strike by jolting up into the air, then bolted towards his sister to clash with her once again. While fighting, Janine was undisturbed as she continued, That legacy was dead long before we were ever born. Stopping the Empire? Ha! Don't get me started on that joke. Vincent was able to spin around from his left and back kick Janine with his right foot into the right side of her head, where she was thrown into a building across from where I stood. He quickly reverted both of his piercers back into his body, using his hands to conjure up a massive amount of energy into his palms. positioning them at his right side as he turned to look past his left shoulder. "You speak only in madness, sister," my friend said. "So don't ignore me as if I have nothing to say." Janine stood up on the third floor of the building and quickly mirrored her brother's position. The two of them then simultaneously shot out a surge of energy from their hands, both forming to be 10 feet wide all around as they called out, "Bagaro!" Their white blasts, fading to dark yellow in the center, clashed in the middle between them, and they began struggling very hard to push the others back, but only stood still. The Bagaro technique wasn't a hard attack to use, somewhat common, able to be used in any range of power between fighters. Some can even equal the power to that of a weak Senkai technique, but it could never overpower. However, it still had the ability to obliterate a single person of our race if given the right circumstance. Holding back her brother's blast, Janine said, "Oh, but you do, Vincent. I've listened. Very well, I might add." The two of them gave up to break away the power struggle and jolted for each other one last time. They both sprung out a piercer from their right arm and clashed with it as they met up in the center, forcing a deadlock between them. With both looking straight into each other's eyes in hatred, Janine said, "You see, while you were training to make yourself stronger in order for you to find this absolute power, Mother was teaching me that what we so desperately search for can never be obtained willingly, only instinctively, given by yet a god, one that wishes for our world to fall into despair, and only one man knows of such a beast." Janine then raised her eyebrows slightly and calmly asked, "Don't you know him?" Vincent gave an even fiercer gaze as he said, "How dare you speak such nonsense? What would your mother know of how this power is to be obtained? And who is this man you speak of?" To answer your first question, simple. The two pushed each other back, then Janine continued, "Mother once had a friend who became a king. That king had a family. The family had many children. And of the children, only one may stand to bring forth this absolute power and annihilate all of that which was given to us. A god amongst mortals." As they both stood waiting for the other to make a move, Vincent said, "Be out with it, baby sister, for you speak nonsense still. Who is this man?" Janine smiled as she tilted her head back a bit and to her left side and said, "You're so stupid, brother. You really are." She then moved her head up straight again and continued, "Have you not known this whole time? The one that knows of this monster is none other than Eyeless Dorgon Shero. And the one he knows to be this monster is none other than that which you call your friend. The only one that lives amongst all the other children. Though his brother still roams this land, he will not last once the day has come to finally end what we all know and love. Now do you understand, Vincent?" Standing in fear at what his sister had said, Vincent slowly turned himself to look over at me as he said, You. This whole time. It's been you." I just stood at the edge of the building I was on, my arms crossed over my chest as I watched the siblings patiently. Bunny glanced over for a moment to see where Amber and Jewel were, concerned from hearing something, then turned back to watch my friend. I ignored the other half-bloods. It was also uncaring of what my friend had found out. I didn't want to tell him, only because it wasn't something I wanted to ever admit until I had killed father. "That's right, brother," Janine said. "Zaec, Raek, and Shero. He is the one. The Endelment. The one that was instinctively given that which you were working so hard to achieve." He is the beginning of our kind's new generation, and he will be the end to those that do not stand as worthy. That includes you. Impossible. Vincent barked as he turned back to his sister. Eyeless is still alive and well, so what you say is false. Idiot. Eyeless only lives because he hides, watching and waiting for the right time to strike. But little does he know that, no matter what he does or how hard he tries, his little brother will overcome him. And soon, he will destroy him. Enough! Vincent reverted his blade back into his arm, while at the same time having his aura spike up and rattled everything within a mile radius as he continued. Even if what you say is true, I'm sure my lord has good reasons to hide his powers from us all, especially from the likes of you, Janine. Janine pretended to look as if surprised and said, "Oh, big words coming from such a small man." She then reverted her blade as well as she continued, "Don't you think that it's a bit odd, knowing that this one man leaves, then comes back as if nothing had ever happened? Huh? Don't you find it suspicious that he, out of everyone else, would still be alive after gaining so many enemies and so much power?" Vincent jolted towards his sister with his right fist pulled back as he yelled, "Shut the hell up!" The two of them began rapidly striking each other with lightning speed, while they moved around the area again and continued with their conversation. "What, brother?" Janine sarcastically asked. "Am I making you angry now?" Amazingly enough, yes. However, you still speak in madness. As the darkness has corrupted your mind, so do your words intend to corrupt mine. But I will not fall for such nonsense. I trust my lord, and I always shall, no matter what you say. Vincent then raised his voice and shouted, "We shall bring back peace." Our friend quickly pulled his left fist back to punch Janine's head, but she ducked down to dodge him and countered with her right fist, striking Vincent hard in the stomach. Keeping her fist pressed against her brother, and paralyzed from the attack, Janine calmly said, "Too bad you won't get to see it." At that point, I felt it necessary to jump in and stop the fight. However, before I could even leap off the side of the building, Janine used the Dark Vanish technique and teleported both herself and Vincent from my sight. And since I was in my normal form, I didn't expect it, nor was able to counter it. After 3 seconds passed, they reappeared back on the street as both of them stood up straight. They were standing with their backs turned to each other, with Vincent facing away from me. Another few seconds passed and I noticed that Vincent had 9 large gashes going through his torso, along with Janine's 9 foxtails dripping with blood. Each blood drop that hit the ground would vanish into darkness, unable to recover to help my friend. I looked over at Vincent to see him drop to his knees. Then he fell forward as darkness dissipated him into nothing, dragging his soul into the eternal abyss. Just as my friend disappeared, Janine looked down at the ground disappointed and said to herself, "I'm sorry, brother, but I had to end your suffering. I would rather live forever with regret than allow you to continue to live in misery." "You bitch!" I shouted as I jolted towards the half-blood to strike her. I quickly pulled my right fist back to punch her, but she vanished away from me, and all I struck was the ground. I pulled my fist out of the pavement and looked back to where I moved from, where I saw Janine standing with her back slightly turned towards me as she looked over her right shoulder at me. Amazingly, she didn't go for Bunny this time, even with my daughter right next to her cowering slightly as she stepped a few feet away. As I turned to the half-blood, I yelled, "Get back here, you coward! You and I need to settle this right now, both for the death of my brother and a loyal friend." Janine just turned away from me as she said, "Sorry, Zaec, not this time. Erase." With that, She vanished from the area, completely out of my range to find her. I just stared at where she had stood, surprised, while I remembered hearing what she had said once before, to use her teleportation technique. Mesmerized at that, I quietly said, "You." Just then, a loud bang came from where Amber and Jewel were. Then Bunny turned to me and yelled, "Papa, help!" I turned towards the bang, irritated, and said, "Damn it, now what?" I flew up about 100 feet to look down and see the two sister half-bloods now fighting amongst each other. However, it wasn't so much as a fight as it was Amber just smacking around Jewel. Jewel wasn't fighting back in any way, just Amber punching her sister and even throwing her into a few buildings. I motioned near my daughter as she asked, "Papa, what happened to Vincent?" I just sighed, while Blight flew over to my right shoulder. Then I waited for Bunny to follow. I jolted towards Amber to grab her right fist from striking Jewel again and yelled, "Enough, Amber! Settle down!" Bunny moved to hold Jewel at a distance in comfort, while Amber struggled to break free of me as she yelled, "Let go of me, Zaec! I've had it! Either she converts to our way of life, or she dies!" "Hey!" Blight yelled. "Stop that! You're just making a fool of yourself. I don't like fools." "You're not helping, Blight," I barked. 2 coins add up to 30 cents and 1 is not a nickel." Finally frustrated with the half-blood, I grabbed the back of her shirt collar with my left hand and quickly moved to grab the lower back of her shirt with my right from her right side. I twisted Amber around to slam her face down into the pavement and held her down with enough force to just keep her there, continuing to try and calm her down. When I placed my left knee on her back, I said, "No one needs to convert to anything, Amber. I will honestly admit that you two were fine the way you were as humans. Now calm down, or we will be here till your half-blood body tires out. Because you're being too stubborn for your own good." And that's exactly what we did. After about 10 minutes of Amber struggling to break free, she started to calm down, yet still fussed. Jewel just sat on the ground behind me and cried, with Bunny patting her gently on her back for comfort. Once both half-bloods settled, Jewel said, "No, my lord, she's right." I looked back at her, while continuing to hold her sister down, as she began to cry again and said, "I should convert to my new life, but it just seems wrong, and I don't know why." "That's because you're looking at it from the wrong point of view," Bunny said as Amber stopped struggling. "We all have different views and opinions on life, just like humans." With that, I looked over from my right and down at the ground as my daughter glanced at me and continued, "As much as I know Papa hates to admit it." Damn straight, I thought. The two of us then looked back over at Jewel as Bunny said, "But just because you now know that you're half Kexan, doesn't mean you have to give up your life as a human. You don't have to fight just because we do." "Exactly," I complied. "That's great," Amber said, irritated. "Now, could you please get off of me? Your knee is digging into my back and your ass is a lot heavier than it looks." "Exactly," I said as a means to insult the woman, which worked since she moaned in irritation towards me. Blight flew down to Amber's face and said, "Say pretty please with sugar on top." Amber looked over at the annoying ball of energy that never shuts the hell up and said, "I will fucking drop you if you dare tell me to do something like that again, annoying ball." "Fair enough." "Exactly," I said, now with no care whatsoever. I released my hold on Amber as I stood up and turned to Jewel to go help her up, lowering my right hand out to her. The half-blood stopped crying and looked up at me, surprised. Then I said, "Come on, I'll help you up." Getting Jewel onto her feet, I looked back slightly at Amber and continued, "And you need to settle down a bit and learn things at a better pace." Amber dusted herself off as Blight flew over to my right shoulder again. Then the half-blood turned to me and said, "Yes, my lord. Forgive me. It's not I you should be asking for forgiveness from." Amber looked at her sister, who held on to me in a bit of fear. Then she said, "Please forgive me, sister." Jewel just huddled up to me even more, but nodded her head in response to her sister. Then Amber looked over at me and said, "Wow, guess having strength and power got the better of me." "A common mistake," I said as I turned away from her and headed back towards New York. "At least, for some idiots." "Thanks," she said sarcastically, very irritated again. "That makes me feel loads better." As she motioned to follow me, she shook her head a bit and said, "Asshole." Back at the hotel, I adjusted my glasses and went to find what was on the news. Of course, none of it was important, as usual. Yojin was gone again, without a hint of what he was doing or where he went. Joey was hiding behind the arm of the left side couch, whining like a dog, while Nanale yelled at him from the other side of the room. Amber went to the right side couch to sit down and watch TV with her sister, while Bunny went to sit down on the floor next to Kalita in the living room as Blight hovered over her head. I noticed Wolf being pulled by her left arm into the first bedroom by Fox, both giggling as they closed the door behind them. I went into the kitchen to find out what Serena was cooking for dinner, finding Nanye helping her. I braced my forearms onto the outer side of the center counter to face Serena, while I asked, "Do you ever leave this area?" "When you're not around," my wife replied, facing the sink to wash some vegetables. I glanced at the annoying couple, then turned back to my wife and asked, "What's Joey getting his ass handed to him for?" Serena laughed out loud, then replied, "His dumbass forgot Nanale's name just as they were starting to get intimate." I chuckled at that, as did Nanye, and I said, "Next time, don't let them even get close to being intimate in this place, regardless of how brief and unsatisfying it will be." Serena laughed again as Nanye said, "Ouch." My wife turned to start chopping the vegetables on a cutting board that was in the center counter, while she asked, "You want to know what he called her instead?" I moved to start helping her out with the cooking as I smiled and asked, "What was it?" She chuckled, then replied, "Daisy." "Daisy? Who's Daisy? And how the hell did he forget that badly?" "It's Joey, Ray. He's an idiot." After a few more seconds of Nanale yelling at Joey, I finally got annoyed with them and called out, "Alright, I've had it. Can someone get them out of here?" "With pleasure, my lord," Kalita said as she stood up to escort the twisted couple out. Just as they were pushed through the front door, Joey yelled, "Please, Ray, don't leave me out here with her." "Bye, Joey," I said, oblivious to my dumb friend. "Don't come back." "Oh, shut up, Ray," Nanye said as she lightly slapped my right arm with her left paw. "Please, my lord," Joey continued. "You don't understand. She's evil." "Quit being a pussy, Joey," Nanale barked. Kalita slammed the door shut, then walked back over to the couch she was sitting on and said, "Creator, those two are irritating as hell. It's just like shadow and light." "Glad someone around here knows how I feel," I said. Both Serena and Nanye bumped my sides with one of their elbows, while my wife said, "Hey." I meant someone else. Serena sniggled, while Nanye said, "Better." After a few minutes passed, the new anchor person on the news said something about a riot breaking out on the streets of Los Angeles. The riot consisted of nothing but humans that were against all the other races not from Earth. The humans hated the fact that my race and the other races from Wavryn existed. They were completely against us being on Earth, even if it was just for a visit. One of the rioters said that Earth was their homeworld, that they didn't want outsiders stepping in and even acting as if they were touring the place. They said that Earth was the homeland to the humans, and they weren't going to let any other race outside its borders take it. The news also showed the same types of riots nearly all over the world. Some in Russia, a few in Germany, even in South America, and the United Kingdom. However, most were reported in parts of North America, while others were all over China and Japan. Watching the news, I continued with dinner and bluntly said, I was wondering when they'd start rejecting us. It took them long enough. This isn't the first time this has happened, Ray, Serena said. The one that started it all was this very small riot somewhere in Texas that was able to actually beat up a Kexon. However, it didn't last. The Kexon and some of his friends were able to stop the riot by showing the humans what they could do. However, that only made things worse. Even though I knew what would have most likely happened, I felt like getting a laugh out of it and asked, how so? My wife stopped with her cooking and replied, after the humans found out that they couldn't kill the Kexon, they began preaching that he was an unholy being of life. A demon, if you will. They considered him a traitor of God and that he should be destroyed. But even when they used all of the weapons they could get on hand, they found out that they still couldn't kill him. The Kexon and all this didn't wish to harm the humans. Said it was not in his nature to kill innocents. Very good. I wonder how many others there are that think the same. Don't you get it, Zaec? Serena barked as she turned to face me. They hate us. The humans hate each and every single one of us. They want us dead. So? I asked as I looked over at her with a light smile. They're humans. They're stupid. And now, finally, they don't want us here. They don't think we should even be here to say hello. And I'm all for it. I don't want to be here myself. But they want to get rid of us, Zaec. Serena started with her cooking again as she continued. They're going at it by trying to kill us. That proves that none of these humans are anything close to being innocents. They're all Quellants that deserve to die. With that, I quickly grabbed a large kitchen knife with my left hand and moved myself closer to my wife, slamming the tip of the blade into the counter just half an inch from her right hand, about 2 inches deep. Serena jumped slightly and looked over at me in fear, noticing my fierce gaze as I only had my eyes aimed at her. However, what I did wasn't intentionally to scare her. It was to stop her. As I held the knife in place, I spoke quietly, yet viciously, and said, Enough, Serena. I can't stand these humans either. Makes me want to vomit. But that doesn't mean I believe that they need to be destroyed. Otherwise, I would have done it long ago, and none of us would be here today. So for your sake, shut your mouth. Everyone around us went silent, muting the TV as well, while both Serena and Nanya began to quiver from my action, since they were the closest to me. Remember who you are, I continued. Humans have every right to hate us, even if it's just because we have powers, and they don't. It's their will, not ours. I then yanked out the knife from the counter, actually scaring the two near me even more, where I tossed it into the sink. Afterwards, spoke in my normal tone once more and said, "As to every being of life, idiocy is their downfall. So if they think we're an abomination, then may the Creator gladly guide them down the path to their own destruction. However, I am with the humans on this, 100%. I don't want our kind here. It's not our world. Yet even so, I fear we have no other world to go to now. Do you understand?" Serena, still filled with fear as her fox ears bent down and back, tried to make herself look calm as she turned away from me to stare down at the counter. She tried to get back to cooking while she said, "Yes, my lord. I'm sorry that I upset you. It will never happen again." Serena. My wife stopped with what she was doing and just continued to gaze down at the counter. I moved to gently hold her, where she turned to face me, and we both motioned our arms around each other. "I don't mean to scare you," I calmly said, "nor demean you in any way. I just don't want you to act like father. Let it go. Don't worry about the humans anymore." Serena placed her head on me. She looked away from the TV and said, "Okay, Ray. It'll never happen again. I promise you. I'm sorry." "It's okay, Serena. And I'm sorry for how I lashed out at you." I moved to give her a light kiss on her forehead, then turned to watch TV. She went back to cooking. When I went to look back at the TV, I heard a knock at the front door. I looked over to my right and yelled, "Go away before I rip you a new one and pour your dirty salt in it." "Ouch," Nanye said. "Secret Service, sir," the man replied through the front door. "Open up. We just want to talk to you." "Not so secret if you just gave yourself away like that," I said as I adjusted my glasses again and walked over to the door. I swung it open with my left hand, banging it against the wall bracer, and asked, "What do you punks want?" The two light-skinned men standing outside my door had their hands behind their backs as they stood themselves upright, while slowly turning their heads to look over at one another. Both then quickly turned back to me, so the one to my right asked, "May we come in?" "Where's the president? Isn't he supposed to be with you guys?" "There are more of us," the one to my left replied. "So no, he's not." "We must speak with you for a moment, sir," the first one continued. "And it must be in private. That's just how we do our job." I would have responded with something about my occupation, but I figured they wouldn't take the joke. I adjusted my glasses again, then headed back into the living room as I said, "Fine, whatever." All Secret Service told me was that the president wasn't too thrilled with the riots, but tends to crack down on them before things got out of control. For he fears his life, as well as everyone else's, is endangered if he does not do so, which would make sense. They also told me that it's the same with the other countries. Their leaders will not tolerate such behavior if it jeopardizes their way of life too. So I guess all the riots really did was give themselves a hard bitch slap to the face and a giant middle finger to look at. Anyways, the last thing Secret Service told me before they left was that nothing the riots can do will affect my kind, or any other race, while being on Earth. Because, once again, humans are stupid and they can't grasp the fact of reality that no matter what, someone or something will always be better than them in whatever way it may be. Idiots. Though I have to admit, I'd be pissed too if some random race of beings that I didn't know about suddenly appeared on my homeworld. However, I'd at least get over it after about a day or two. Then after that, I'd either make friends with them or kill them. Either way, I win. Point being is, Humans get too upset about stupid things, whereas I don't. And they go all out on it until they either die or win in some dramatic way that makes them look superior. It's one of the many things that really irritates me about them. Because no victory is ever great unless you can witness it change and evolve into a grand piece of history to me. Once Secret Service left, Wolf and Fox came out of the bedroom and laid down in front of the TV in their full animal forms. Fox moved to have her back against Wolf's underside as they curled up to face away from the entertainment center, with Fox able to lay Wolf's head over her neck. Everyone else was still doing what they wanted to do, being in nothing, while Serena and Nanya had stopped cooking. Yebeki moved to stand behind the couch I was at, while my wife sat down next to my left side. Serena turned in her seat to face me slightly and said, "Ray, I've been meaning to ask you something." "What?" "Is it true? Do you really control the powers of darkness now?" "Better than that." I grew a smirk as I turned my head forward and placed my hands behind my head, then laid back a bit as I continued. "I've got abyss in my hands now. I'm better than anyone or anything that wields darkness." "Smartass," Cervic and Shadow simultaneously said. Serena turned to look down at the floor as her ears bent down and said, "So it's true then. You'll die." With that, everything went quiet again as everyone turned and looked over at my wife and I, surprised yet confused at what Serena just said. However, I calmly looked over at my wife and acted as if it was nothing, but it did concern me. My left ear bent down as my right stayed standing, while I asked, "How so?" Serena quickly turned back as she grabbed the upper left side of my coat's torso with her right hand, looking up at me as she raised her voice and said, "I have to come with you wherever you go now, Ray. I can't part from you anymore." "Calm down, Serena. What's gotten into you?" I turned myself to her and gently grabbed her right arm with both of my hands and continued, "You're acting crazy." Serena's fox ears then popped up. She gave me an angry expression and said, "I am not insane, mister." "Yes, you are. You married me, remember?" "Shut up. Bite me." I just saw a massive fire in her eyes, while she grinned in anger and spoke through her teeth and said, "I'm going with you, and that's that." Frightened at how my wife reacted, I sat frozen for a moment after my ears bent back. I was quiet, trying to think of something to say to calm Serena down. Blight floated over to my right ear and, being an ass, said, "Watch yourself, my lord. This time, she might actually bite you." Though I didn't answer after a few seconds, Serena quickly grew a bright and beautiful smile on her face. She gave a light giggle as her fox tail started wagging frantically and happily, acting as if I had answered. With that, she joyfully said, "Good, then it's settled." "Are you sure I'm even going anywhere?" I asked. "Do I really have to explain why you should shut up? Do I really have to detail why I don't care and that you should bite me?" "Shut up." "Why?" Because you're being an ass, that's why. Now quit being difficult." I moaned a bit, becoming more irritated at how my wife was acting, then asked, "I'm difficult? Look who's talking." "The person who's controlling you, because if you don't listen, you won't get a special treat from me." I raised my right eyebrow, my ears motioning to a suspicious stance, then asked, "Treat?" Just then, Nanya turned away and loudly said, "Like a fucking dog." She and just about everyone else then began laughing for a while at me. I ignored the others as I continued to stare at my wife, wondering what she could have in store for me. After everyone calmed down, I saw my expression, and Serena just smiled at me, knowing she had finally won the argument. I can't ever beat her when she does that, and every time it's something different, so I can't predict what's coming. When everything was at ease, I smiled at my wife and said, "Alright, Serena, you win." Serena raised her arms to flop them on my shoulders, moving to wrap them around my neck as she leaned in and said, "That's a good little bitch." Shortly afterwards, everyone around me laughed again. I just glared at my wife and quietly said, "Hate you." Still smiling, Serena squinted her eyes a bit and said, "I know, and you love it like that." Having her way once again, my wife was able to now follow me around wherever I may go. I didn't like having her near my battles, but sometimes I couldn't help it. This was one of those times. But I get a treat. Oddly enough, I got a distress call from the governor of Nebraska. Sadly, though, I didn't know how to use a phone. I never had one, nor knew anyone that was close who used one. So I was a little... well, let's just say it. I was stupid and couldn't get the damn thing to work. Make fun of me if you must. No one on Bodor owns or operates a phone. We never needed one. Just so you can have your fill, I'll tell you how I reacted to it. When the first ring struck my ears, I jumped and quickly went to glance around to figure out what the noise was and where it was coming from. After the third ring, I ran over to it, but then had no idea how to get it to stop ringing. On the fifth ring, I asked myself, how do you use this strange contraption? On the seventh ring, I put my hands on my head to cover my ears and yelled, "Make it stop!" Everyone just chuckled at me, though I'm sure neither of them, except the half-bloods, actually knew how to use it either. They just had another excuse to laugh at me. To my rescue, Amber ran over after finally having been irritated by the ringing and answered it. Afterwards, she hung up and told me about a major fight that was going down in Bassett. Something about a man in white, a guy with some 5-word-long title to his name. Of course, that made us all think, ah crap, it's death. The half-blood stayed behind this time with Kalita, while the rest of us headed out to Nebraska to handle the problem. The main reason Amber and Jewel didn't want to go was because they didn't want to deal with the idiot and the pompous jackass that is JJ. And I couldn't blame them. This concludes the reading of Chapter 34. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you like what you've seen and heard, there will be a link to my physical works in the description below. With that being said, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you again next week, reading Chapter 35.